right, welcome Vol Nation to episode 4 of the VolBoyz podcast. This episode we're going to focus on college football as a whole. If you have not already, go check out our Florida Hate Week episode. That was episode 3 on our YouTube. And while you're on our YouTube, be sure to subscribe. Also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at VolBoyz Podcast. That's boys with a Z. My name is Trevor and I am joined by Levi,
Yo, what up?
Connor,
Hey, what's up?
and Andrew is not here today, so we'll just get right into it, guys. Obviously we already talked about the Florida preview. That's a big game coming up for Tennessee for obvious reasons. We didn't really talk about the Akron game, but there's really not much to say there personally. It's very similar to the Ball State game. Tennessee rolled, Akron played dirty. The end. So first order of business, we'll kind of get into here is just breaking down the Week 4 top 25, the AP poll. Guys, what's some takeaways from this one?
One thing that sticks out to me is Pitt's still in the top 25. That's kind of good for us. Let's see. There's also Oregon is back in the top 25. That's another
Yes,
Domination
sir.
Domination against BYU, man. 21-point victory.
I know.
They look good.
I don't know if anyone really saw that coming, to be honest.
Not really.
I did. I called it.
Yeah, you did. Honestly, for BYU, we hyped them up a lot last week, but
Yeah.
it was honestly probably a matter of time, I guess. Going on the
Yeah.
road, especially. I don't know. They looked too good in the opening weeks. Couldn't maintain that. They had a tough schedule.
Another thing is Florida's in the top 25 still. They really don't deserve to be in the top 25, to be
Honestly,
honest.
surprising. I think they're still a top 30 team, not top
Yeah.
25.
Also,
Kentucky-
Clemson in the top 5, I think, is the stupidest thing ever. And it's not like they're ever going to drop until they lose a game. So, like, I get it. Clemson's Clemson. They're relevant from the last few years, so you got to put them in the top 5. But, like, they're clearly not a top 5 team. That's why I really hope they lose to Wake Forest today or tomorrow, so they get exposed. But I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's another one. Miami's still in the top 25 even after losing to A&M, which is funny because A&M's number 23 now. and
Both
they're
teams look bad in that
25.
game. Low scoring
Yeah.
game. Both teams look bad.
Washington, were they ranked last week?
No.
No, who'd they beat again?
Michigan State,
Michigan
number
State.
11.
They whopped
Michigan-
them.
They knocked them out of the.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
crazy part is Washington went into that game unranked. Michigan State was 11, but Washington was favored in that game for some reason. They win by 11, and Michael Penix Jr. throws for almost 400 yards, 397 yards. The Indiana transfer getting it done, really.
Yeah. Kentucky too. That's another one. They had jumped
Yeah.
Oklahoma State. I don't think they deserve it.
No.
No, and I'm gonna go back to this. I think they lose to Ole Miss next week. Personally, I think Ole Miss is pretty good. After watching I know it's Georgia Tech, but after seeing that Georgia Tech score, they beat them. They beat Georgia Tech worse than Clemson did. So
Their offense seems to be finally starting to click, and I think that's really what's.
plus, didn't they shut them out?
Yeah, and their defense has continued to improve under Lane Kiffin, and I think they're a little bit more of a balanced team this year, which is good for them.
Well, I know everyone's like, oh, you can't like use the transitive property to compare teams, like say, oh, this team beat this team by this much, so that means they're better than this team that didn't beat them by as much. But like if you look at it, Clemson still let Georgia Tech score on them, I think. Ole Miss didn't.
Yeah,
So that shows.
that game was
Uh-huh.
yeah
And
that game was
people-
close going into the
people
fourth
are
quarter.
People are saying Clemson's defense is good, and that's like kind of I feel like what's people are saying their strong point. And if Ole Miss can hold them to more, that shows me that Clemson is still even more overrated, or even Ole Miss is just that good. So
Connor, you got any takeaways from this week's AP poll?
I going back to what Levi said, it's definitely Kentucky. I mean, I just think they're a little bit too high. I think that's going to be an overhype, but I mean that's really how the AP poll is. I mean, I don't even really think you can really take it seriously throughout the year, but it's. I mean, I like to see Penn State up there, even though. I mean, that was a big game versus Auburn that they played. I mean, even though Auburn lost, I mean, still that's an SEC opponent that you come in and play and you actually beat. I mean, I think that's a really good win for them. That definitely makes them a top 15 team. Um, again, like Levi said, really everything Levi said, I agree with. Like Florida, I think they definitely shouldn't be in top 25, and like Trevor said, it's like top 30. Because I can honestly see them losing to Wake Forest and definitely Texas, especially with the way Texas played Alabama that game. Kind of worries me about if they played Texas A&M though, just because I don't really know how that game would. I don't really know how that game would go. Like that'd be like one of those games I'm just like I could
Yeah,
see
that's
a
a
true
toss-up. Yeah,
winner.
Florida and A&M
Yeah.
are very similar teams. It seems like.
I could definitely see them losing to Pitt, and so
Yeah, I mean, looking at the teams behind Florida, it doesn't seem like they would be favored to win in any of those matchups, and unless maybe they're playing at home.
yeah,
I
I
just
think
think
they could
they're
definitely pull it off for some of
yeah,
those
for sure,
teams.
for sure. I mean, they played well against their one good opponent that so far. Well,
Mm-hmm.
against a top 10 opponent so far this season in
Oh yeah,
Utah, their best game so far this season.
yeah.
Um, honestly, I saw a lot of Kentucky fans arguing that they should be number 8, that they should have hopped Oklahoma State because of their strength of schedule so far. Kentucky's arguing that they had a bigger win than Oklahoma State has, and I agree with that statement. They beat Florida, better team than Oklahoma State has played so far,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not. It doesn't deserve jumping
Yeah,
after you beat an FCS opponent. It doesn't deserve. You don't deserve to jump over a team that also beat a they beat a better team by more points. So it just makes no sense. Well, actually, they
yeah.
played an FCS team too, but makes no sense to jump a team
I think
when you
yeah,
guys both won against inferior opponents.
yeah. I think the real test for Oklahoma State's going to be coming in to these next 2 weeks, which is they're playing Baylor and they're also playing Texas Tech the week after. I mean, I
Texas
think
Tech's looked
that's
good.
where.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I think that's definitely where it sort of shows. But they also play Texas almost the week after that, so I mean, I think they're definitely coming up, and they're going to have a big schedule coming up because they're also playing Oklahoma towards the end of the season.
yeah. Later on, yep.
And you do look in Kentucky's schedule. I mean, those aren't. I couldn't really see that.
There's not a lot of winnable games on either team's schedule. I mean, all the games
No.
that they have in conference play are going to be pretty tough. You could argue
Yeah.
Kentucky's got a tougher schedule for sure because of the SEC. But one thing also that stood out to me was Arkansas did not move at all. They're still at
Mm-hmm.
10. Looked horrible against Missouri State. We're losing that game up until the second half, and I don't know. They were my solid number 3 last week. I said in my power rankings they were my third best team in the SEC,
Yeah.
and you're the only Connor. Shout out you. You're the only one that really had them at like 5, and I was
Yeah.
I thought you were crazy, but
I
I'm
just.
saying that.
It was me just going back from the very beginning. I was just like, I do not see a solid 3 team. Like, I just
Yeah,
can't see that. Like, even now, like, I
even
feel a
now,
little bit better, but like, still, like, I don't know if Tennessee is that 3 team. I'd love to have them there, but like, that's just really where I have to have them because I think they definitely have a chance of beating Kentucky. And if they played Arkansas this year, they could easily beat them. I could see
Well,
that.
here's the thing. I haven't thought Tennessee's looked that great, and normally, if this was a normal SEC year with as good competition as it normally is, I would agree with you
Mm-hmm.
that I don't think Tennessee necessarily is the number 3 team. But I think Kentucky and Arkansas haven't looked good either. So it's like
No,
yeah,
that's.
I think
exactly.
we've looked better than them, and I think that's really
Oh
what
yeah,
matters to me to make me think that we're better. And so
And it's
oh yeah.
honestly,
obvious.
Tennessee
Yeah,
should be the number 9 team, I think, because
it's
Mm-hmm.
obvious to
we're
me
better than
that
both of them.
it's obvious to me that Kentucky, Tennessee, and Arkansas are all 3, 4, and 5 in the
Mhm.
SEC.
Yeah.
But those all have looked inconsistent, but all have still won games. And look at
Yeah.
Texas A&M has not taken care of business. There's teams in the SEC that have not taken care of business. So you got to respect that, but at the same time, you got to wonder which of these teams is going to step up and play well because
Yeah.
none has shown their true potential yet. I don't think.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, Moving on a little bit here. You guys want to talk about week 3 real quick? There's not too many exciting games to talk about, but there was a couple important ones. Mainly in the SEC. Taking a look. Obviously, let's just get into this South Florida game a little bit. If you guys want to talk about that,
Yeah, for sure.
I watched a little bit of it. I don't know if you all did or not, but
I didn't, but
Mhm.
my dad was watching it during the Tennessee game at the end, so I kind of had a little bit of a grasp of what was going on. My dad gave me a little bit of some updates while he was watching it on his iPad, so I know what happened, but I didn't really watch it. But yeah.
Yeah. It was definitely Florida just did not honestly should not have won that game. I mean,
no, they shouldn't have. Yeah,
that was way too close, especially going against UCF, which I mean, USF. I mean, it's a good team, but I mean, everybody was going into it thinking that Florida was just like, oh, this is our sort of offset game. We're gonna easy win to go into next week versus Tennessee, and that's not how it looked at all. And
BYU stomped on this team 50 to
mhm.
21. This South Florida team,
Mhm.
Oh,
and I
really?
mean,
That bad?
yeah, it was 50-21. BYU won that game week 1,
Hmm.
and just looking at how Anthony Richardson played without getting into too much of this Tennessee and Florida breakdown, because again, we talked about that in episode 3. Go
Yeah.
check it out if you haven't already. But Anthony Richardson turned the ball over way too much. Kind of sold the game, threw it
Mm.
away, and South Florida misses a
Mm.
field goal to tie it, go into overtime.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously a smaller school, obviously a smaller team. They're going to make mistakes like that, and Florida escaped. Honestly, I think they still would have won in overtime. I think Florida still would have won in overtime, but they let up like 300 yards rushing.
Oh yeah.
Can't do that against a group of 5 school. Um, Other games that happened, we talked a little bit about the Penn State Auburn game. I was impressed with Penn State personally. Like we were talking
Yeah.
about, I know Auburn is having a very down year, but to
Hmm.
go into Jordan Hare, win that football game by a lot, like it was not even close. It's a 29-point victory for
Oh
them.
yeah.
Sean Clifford looked great. I mean, Penn State can have a chance to beat Ohio State later in the season. I think for sure.
I could definitely see that too. Um, I just wonder, is it at home or is it away? Because I think if it's a Penn State home game, that's
White out it, yeah.
yeah, that's that. Those atmospheres are
It's gonna
like
be at Ohio
amazing.
State.
Okay,
And
I think that's definitely
well,
gonna be a
actually,
tough game.
sorry, they're playing at home against Ohio State. They're on the road against Michigan,
Okay,
and they play Michigan, in about 3 weeks.
I think has
So
Michigan even really played anybody yet? Like they're the number
they
4
haven't.
seed, and
Nope.
like that's why I'm like thinking about it. Like every time I see Michigan up there, I'm like, I have not heard about them playing any good teams,
They
like at
play
all.
Colorado State, Hawaii, and Connecticut. They've scored 50 or more points in all those games, only giving up 17 total points.
They're so
Next week
good.
they're playing against I mean, this weekend they're playing against Maryland. Um,
I think
that's a
those
big
are.
upcoming game.
Yeah, I think people are calling for upset.
But
I don't know.
just looking here, like Georgia and South Carolina. Did you guys watch any of that one?
Just a
That
little
wasn't
bit.
Uh,
much of a game.
I caught some glimpses of it as it was on in the living room, but I didn't really sit down and watch.
All about Spencer Rattler. Oh
I
my
do,
gosh, does
I,
he look bad?
I do
Yeah.
want to bring up something really funny. Uh, so you guys know how I don't think Shane Beamer's a great coach.
Hmm.
No.
Uh,
Yeah.
he apparently, actually not apparently, because I saw the video, he said at a press conference, he brought up the fact that his team has won the fourth quarter 10 out of 12 games last season. But you know how funny that stat is? First of all, apparently it wasn't true. People pointed out that it wasn't
They're
true.
outscored in the fourth quarter still.
Yeah, But the
Yeah.
thing is something he's not pointing out is the reason why is because the teams are letting up on him because they
They're
scored
literally
so
blowing them
much.
out. Yeah.
Like Tennessee, for example. Tennessee did nothing in the fourth quarter against South Carolina because they weren't trying anymore because they didn't have to try anymore. All the backups were
We were
in
up by that
because we
much.
put up so
Yeah.
much points on them. That coach
Yeah.
is a joke. And people are saying on Twitter that he reminds them of Butch. And it's just so funny. I don't know. I never understood the hype behind him. I but yeah, I just thought that was funny and it just
He's
shows
got
you.
more talent now, and he's still showing us true colors. They're not looking like a good football team at all.
Yeah,
Granted,
Right.
they've had tough opponents the
he's
first
looking
3 weeks of the season.
he's looking for moral victories like they were
That's showing
celebrating
desperation a little
they were
bit.
celebrating having the first touchdown scored on Georgia this season, but it was in the fourth quarter against their backups.
Yeah.
Like that's not
Yeah.
something you should be celebrating. That's pretty lame. Like I don't know how South Carolina fans are like, yeah, this guy's a good coach.
He doesn't necessarily seem like he's that guy for them, but they're one of those programs that's not really doesn't have a bright future, as in they're not gonna really win the SEC anytime soon. Just looking at the stats for this game, though, I mean, obviously Georgia dominated this whole football game at South Carolina. Stetson Bennett, 284 yards passing. He was also the rushing leader in the game,
Oh yeah.
36 yards. 36 yards. There's only
That's
the
sad.
person with the most rushing yards in that game had 36. That's crazy. Like,
hmm
does Georgia just not need to run the football? I don't know exactly what happened in that game. I didn't watch much of it because it was never a game.
Oh
But
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're being honest, I don't think with the way that they've been passing and the way Stetson Bennett has just been just locked in these first couple games,
See,
it worries me for the Tennessee game. Not
yeah,
because okay, Georgia's absolutely amazing. I think they definitely deserve to be the number one team. But the tight ends, like Brock Bowers, that's who's worrying me right now because that's Stetson Bennett's biggest target. He had 5 receptions, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Like, we
and
are
they got the
not
best.
good with tight ends.
No, but they got the best two tight ends in the country. I think.
Yes.
The other guy, Washington, he's like 6'7". Um,
their offense is definitely better than I thought it would be. Because I didn't think Stetson Bennett would have a good year, but
I think it comes from
in
the
all
improvement of
fairness,
Stetson Bennett.
I think it's kind of like the Tom Brady effect. You put in a decent
Mm.
quarterback with all the pieces around him, he's probably gonna succeed. Not saying Tom Brady's a bad quarterback or Stetson Bennett's a bad quarterback. Tom Brady's honestly way better than Stetson, so it's kind of hard to compare it. But it's the best comparison I can think of. Stetson is doing a good job because Stetson has the best team around him.
We've seen
You
that a
put you
lot
put
with Alabama.
you put Stetson Bennett on South Carolina's team,
Yeah, yeah.
he's probably worse than Spencer Rattler, honestly.
Yeah,
Like,
we've seen that a lot with Alabama quarterbacks surrounded with talent. Now, not nowadays they've got a lot more talented QBs than they used to. But you look at like AJ McCarron or like Blake Sims, these guys that didn't do anything in the NFL, they're surrounded with first round talent. It's
hmm
yeah,
easier to play
you have a
for a team that
you have a
has
five-star
athletes. Yeah,
offensive line blocking for you, giving you time, and you can throw the ball good enough. You're probably going to be able to throw the ball downfield enough to where there's open receivers because you're going to get enough time. But I personally think that he just wouldn't be as good if he was on a different team. But that said, he's definitely has put up some of the best numbers in the SEC. So yeah,
I think that's true. I agree with that. I think it'd be a whole. What's his name? That plays for. He played for Mississippi State last year, and he put up like in that first game versus like a decent team, like 638 yards passing, like the most in NCAA history. Like it wasn't
Will
that great of a
Rogers.
team, yeah.
Yeah,
And he's still didn't play good. Like there was just like a 1 game deal.
yeah. It's kind of that was more of like a scheme fit, I think, because Mississippi
hmm
State's air raid anyway, so they're throwing the ball, 60 times a game, not really running it. and he put up huge numbers, and they were ranked like top 10, weren't they, for a little
Mhm.
bit? But just looking here, did you guys watch the Troy and App State game at all? Because
Yes.
No, I saw the ending
I
though.
didn't catch any of it. Connor, if you watched any of it, you can talk about it a little bit. But
Yes, it was one of those games that you just worry about, especially if you're an App State fan. I mean, you come in and you're just thinking, okay, it's versus Troy. Troy's just gonna just be blown out by App State, and it was not even close to that. And it just the ending was absolutely insane. But just you look at the game, I mean, it was all offense that whole game for App State and Troy both. Like the defenses could not do anything. And it wasn't that high scoring of a game, but it was just like so much possession time for both teams. And you really look at it, you're just like, how did Troy even come close? And it was their rushing game. I mean, they pass all the way up until the red zone and then just run the ball down App State's throat. Their App State's defensive line just couldn't do anything against them, and it was like their corners couldn't do anything either. And I mean, Chase Bryce is just going off,
yeah,
like
it's my nose
22 for
mine right now.
34, 278 and 2 touchdowns. Just throwing the ball to his good receivers, and really the receivers are winning the battles. Not getting a lot of big chunk plays besides that Hail Mary to end the game, which was, or watching it in real time was absolutely insane. Like,
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it completes the arc of App State for sure.
yeah. And but with the game that they played versus Troy, I mean, it kind of worries you because it's just like you're sitting there. They went into half with Troy up. Played a shutout third quarter, and then went for, I want to say it was, did they get, I might be wrong with this, but I want to say they might have gotten a safety, but I could be wrong. It was either a safety or 2-point conversion
Yeah,
in that fourth quarter, but I don't remember.
the ending was
Yeah.
crazy though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
wild. I mean,
Dude, I saw a
yeah.
video of like these Troy sorority girls watching the game, and they were like going crazy whenever he caught it. And then
What?
the guy ran it in because I guess they
Oh,
assumed
it was short. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
like 6 or 7 yards short, and then he ran it in.
they
Yeah.
were all
Mhm.
freaking out except for this one girl who was like bigger, and then people in the comments were like, "Oh, the linebacker knew what was going on," so they're like making jokes about that, like because she's bigger. But like it was really funny because they were like freaking out, but then they're all pissed. They're like, "What happened?"
Yeah,
But it was
but
funny.
it was
That's
a crazy
crazy.
game.
That's one of the crazier endings I've seen to a game.
Yeah,
Dude, America's team, man, for sure.
that's
Yeah.
I mean,
fact.
I think the pressure got to him. I think they
Oh
would have
yeah.
won that game normally, but man, all the media attention
Uh-huh.
definitely got to him.
Yeah.
But what a way to end that one. Like that's crazy.
That's
They've had
a
a
good
crazy
game
3
ender.
weeks.
I think
Yeah,
with all this conference realignment stuff, I think we need to push for App State to move to the ACC.
I agree. Yeah.
I
I
think
can see
Put them in
that.
there.
I
Put them
think
in there
we
with put another Sunbelt team in there too.
I know. I think if we're gonna expand, and the Big Ten's gonna expand, I think the Big 12 and the ACC need to expand as well.
They need to catch up a little bit because they're falling behind. We're taking their
Because
best teams. ACC isn't losing anybody, but they're not gaining anyone either, and
I
they're
think
already a bad conference.
I think that might be the solution to the Big Ten and the SEC getting bigger. Just that all the other conferences need to get bigger too
Yeah.
if
Mhm.
they want to keep the Power Five format. Because if
Right.
not, if you don't adapt and get more teams, you might turn into a Greater Five conference and not
Like a
be able to.
power 180, like each team is their own conference.
Yeah,
I like that.
it's one super conference where literally you just play different teams every year, and there's a national
Yeah.
championship at the end.
Yeah.
Or
Let's
you
go
could
back to the BCS,
you
just
could have
the number one and number
the
two.
NFL where
Uh,
there's 4 teams for each division, and
That would be.
That would
horrible.
change the game,
That's
though.
kind of
That would
Oh
change
yeah.
it.
that's what the SEC is gonna turn into pretty much.
Hmm.
Yeah, because the pods and stuff like
Yeah,
that. But
it's gonna be like we're gonna be in a pod with Auburn, Alabama, and Vanderbilt. That's actually probably what's
That's
gonna happen.
easy. That's easy. And we play
That
them twice
that
a
would
year. Like,
actually, I think our pod, if that is end up what we get, like of course Bama is really really good, but right now you look at Auburn and Vanderbilt, that's pretty good for us,
yeah.
those are
honestly.
two of the worst teams in the SEC right now.
But the
Hmm.
thing is tradition wise and rivalry wise, I think that sucks. But
I do too.
my dad did point out that Auburn used to be one of our bigger rivals before the whole
Hmm.
SEC East
We
West
got to keep
split.
Florida. We got to keep Florida, man. I could
Dude,
care less about playing Georgia personally, but
the
we got to
thing
keep Florida.
is the way the pods is gonna work out. I just don't see that happening unless they do it to where your pod, you play everybody in your pod, and then there's one team
You
outside
play
of
a
your pod.
rival. Yeah, I think that's how they should do it personally.
And if that was the case, I would like Florida to be the one we play every year. But honestly, I
Yeah.
could see them making it Kentucky over that just because it's been a lot more
Yeah.
competitive. Even though
It's all
I'm,
about money now.
because we are Kentucky's biggest rival. I don't care what they say. The way
Yeah, we are.
we,
Yeah.
the
They're not
way
ours, but we're theirs. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of the same with us in Florida. We're not their
It's
biggest
kind of a
rival.
little brother. It's like a little brother type thing.
Yeah. And in
Just
all fairness,
how
it's
it
the
is
same
right
with
now.
us in Florida because like Florida doesn't look at us the same way we look at
No.
them, which sucks.
Once it
And I couldn't change
once the
that,
game
but
gets more competitive, though, once the rivalry gets more competitive, that'll change real quick.
yeah. It's also a lot of their fans are younger, so they don't actually like the older fans, they hate Tennessee. And even some of the younger fans still don't like Tennessee or even hate, but like it's just
They
the
haven't
people
experienced
who
them
haven't ex
losing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And especially old Alabama fans hate Tennessee. Like the ones that went through the
Mm.
90s,
Yeah.
they hate us because we were whooping their butt in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like I think we only lost to them maybe once or twice during the whole 90s.
All right. Do you guys want to talk about the Heisman odds real quick? And the favorites.
Yeah, we can.
Uh, I think is I could be wrong, Connor. Is this the first week that they have the odds out, or they had them out the whole?
Pretty sure they had them out all year because it really goes based off last year, but like at the start of the season. But
Yeah.
those odds aren't like it's not until probably about closer to the end, probably about I'd say week 8, like another 4 games. That's when the official like, hey, these are probably the best odds, but because it just
Yeah. I mean,
changes every week. I mean,
yeah, for sure. And right now, we've only seen each player play like 3 weeks. 3 games, and
mhm.
we're getting ready to hop in conference play though, so it might be a good time to bring this up. You got right here. You got C.J. Stroud, number 1 currently. Bryce Young,
Mhm.
2. Dylan Gabriel, which surprised to me, is at
Yes,
3. Will Anderson at 4, and Jackson Smith. Man,
in
I
Jigba.
said
Yeah,
Jigba.
Jackson.
Okay.
In
Uh,
Jigba.
in Jigba. There we go.
Yeah,
At number 5, the Ohio State wide receiver.
which is absolutely
Um,
insane. Like, I think it should be higher than Will Anderson, especially the way that Will Anderson played versus Texas. I mean, how many offsides did he have? Like,
he had a lot, and he didn't have much of
that's
an impact on the game, and that's their
uh-uh.
best player. I think that's their best player on their whole team, let
Yeah.
alone their defense. Bryce Young should not be as high as he is either, personally.
Mm-mm.
He's looked average in this. I'd say
Yeah.
that right now there's 2 or 3 SEC quarterbacks playing better than he is.
Oh yeah. Like, where is Hendon Hooker? Question mark. Like,
Hey, Hendo Cinco for a Heisman, baby. What
yeah.
coming out party this weekend? If he throws for 400, he's got to be up there.
Oh yeah.
Even if he
I think
throws for
that's
300
definitely.
yards on him.
I
Yeah, I mean,
mean,
I haven't seen Dylan Gabriel play at all. I guess he's putting up big numbers. I don't know, but they haven't played anybody really yet. Played
no.
Nebraska last weekend. Obviously, Nebraska's broken.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he does
I
not
don't know.
have.
In all honesty, though, the Heisman odds don't really matter right now, to be honest. It's once you get into later on in the season when everybody's played good teams, that's when you're really
yeah,
gonna know who's in the running.
for sure.
So,
I just think it's interesting to look at because
well, right now I think it's a
for,
popularity contest, to be honest,
it
because
is because I don't think this is the best 5 players in football, and I mean, I don't think the Heisman is ever the best 5 players in football. Honestly,
Yeah,
it's really
it's
who's
usually
the
the
best
best.
quarterback.
Yeah, it really has just turned into a quarterback award, which I think, in all honesty, that's the way it's been. And so I kind of look at it more as the quarterback award, honestly, because that's just kind of how the precedent's been set. But there is also the occasional wide receiver or running back who wins it too. But
I
it's
mean, the
Hmm.
QB is usually the best player on the team. He has the most impact on the game
yeah,
because of his balls in his hands every single play.
yeah.
Hmm.
They have the most stats usually because they do
Yeah.
so much. It's kind of like the only way a wide receiver or running back is gonna win it over a quarterback is if like they have ungodly stats, like
Yeah.
freaking Derrick Henry, for example, or Jalen Waddle.
Devontae
Or
Smith a
no,
couple years
yeah, it was
ago.
Devontae Smith, not Jalen Waddle. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's usually quarterbacks, except for the one year Peyton Manning got screwed. It was a defensive player
Yeah.
because
Yeah, that's
that
Of
makes
course.
sense. That makes sense. Dude, I swear, literally every time Tennessee's in the running for the Heisman, it's like we get
We
screwed.
never get it.
Johnny Majors was even worse than Peyton, in all honesty, because with Peyton, at least he lost to somebody who had a good record. The guy Johnny Majors lost to was on like a 2-win team.
And
mm,
that doesn't happen anymore. If you look at the stats, I mean, you got teams like Western Kentucky that goes 7-5. Their
hmm
Yeah,
quarterback Balin Zappi last year has like sets the record. I think he breaks Joe Burrow's
yeah.
record. And
yeah,
if you're going solely off stats, that guy should win the Heisman.
Hmm.
yeah,
But I think going back to what you said, Levi, it's a popularity contest, honestly.
yeah. It
Definitely
is
is.
best.
All
And
right.
it's
That's why it's always Alabama, Oklahoma, Ohio State. All of those
Yeah, it's
teams
all
end
the
up
big
winning
teams.
them
Joe
every
Burrow that
year.
one year. Yeah.
and then looking at the odds right now, actually going
Dude, the last time.
into go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say just and you can finish. But the last time that it wasn't necessarily a popularity contest was when Lamar Jackson won it.
That's true.
Because
Louisville.
Louisville didn't do anything that year really. But
Definitely by far the best player in the nation, though.
yeah, he definitely deserved
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah,
like,
definitely
just
deserved
say
it.
that's the last time it wasn't really necessarily a popularity contest. But yeah, you can go
And
finish
really,
on
in
him.
a way, it was just because of his highlights, man. Everybody was talking about it. But no, I agree. Yeah, that wasn't definitely last time it wasn't a popularity contest. But Connor, you can go
Hmm.
ahead.
Just looking at these odds and the top 10 total, you got Stetson Bennett up there. Um, Dylan Gabriel, obviously, which we talked about, but JJ McCarthy's up there, Michigan's quarterback.
Yeah.
Um, Also, Anthony Richardson looks like he's rounding up sort of the end of the pack. He's at 8, and then Bijan Robinson, Texas running back, and Jameer Gibbs, Alabama's running back.
Yeah, the crazy thing about that is Anthony Richardson has yet to throw a touchdown pass.
Yeah.
And he's 8th in the Heisman favorites right now. That's insane.
Hmm.
There's no way he should get any votes. If the Heisman race ended today, if the season was over today, he
Yeah.
should not be considered.
He,
He's not a top 20
I
quarterback.
think Will
Oh,
Levis is more deserving of being in the
I
conversation than
agree.
JJ.
And
I think Will Levis is
facts.
horrible. I've not thought Will Levis is good all season, and I still think he deserves it more because at least he's thrown a touchdown.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
wild
And
to
it's
You
me.
like,
you
That's crazy.
can't not throw a touchdown pass and be in the Heisman running. That
He's
makes
got
no
4
sense.
interceptions.
Especially
Hendon
s-
Hooker has better passing yards,
oh,
better
yeah.
touchdowns, 0 picks.
zero
And I
picks.
guarantee he has more rushing yards. Well, I don't
Uh,
guarantee it. I bet he has more rushing yards though.
I don't.
Because
Then Will
I
Levis,
don't.
probably.
Well, then Anthony
well,
Richardson. I don't
Oh,
know.
Anthony
Anthony
Richardson,
Richards,
no.
it would be close just because Anthony Richards has only run that one game really.
I just don't know how. I'd have to see it first. I wouldn't be surprised either way because I've seen Hooker run a lot. But if I had to
It's
guess, I'd
honestly a bad argument just because of the case of focusing on
Yeah.
passing
yeah.
and passing touchdowns. Hooker's better than I'd say the majority of QBs in this category right now.
I think so too, but I don't know. Hooker still needs to prove himself, but so do all the other quarterbacks. But the thing is I don't think that they're being held to the same standard that Hooker's going to be held to because Hooker's on Tennessee's team. If Hooker was playing for Ohio State, he'd be the number one or number two
Yeah,
in the running. Like Like it's because he's playing for Tennessee that he's not getting as much
He
love.
should be top 10, but I think as he continues to progress this year, he will finish top 10. I think
He'll
he stays
finish.
healthy.
I think he'll
He'll finish
finish
top
top
10.
5 personally, but we'll see. It just depends on
He's
how.
gonna get
It
votes.
really
He's
just
gonna get votes for
depends.
the Heisman.
It really just depends on how good our season goes and how good his season goes. Because you
Yeah.
never know, he could get hurt. So there's a lot of variables, but
This thing,
I feel
it's
confident in him.
this is just like not. I don't like this. I'm looking right now, which is going right now by passing yards, but Hendon Hooker's ranked 27th in all of FBS.
And passing yards.
Will Levis has about 40 more passing yards,
That's crazy.
but 4 interceptions on the season already.
Okay. He's see, I mean looking at the stats.
Yeah, it looks
I mean,
like
and
right
Hooker
here.
hasn't finished any game yet. I'd say Will Levis is playing a little bit more than Hooker has.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Looks like Hendon Hooker in the top 50s, tied between 5 for no interceptions, while being over 5 passing touchdowns.
Yeah,
His accuracy has been great, and we talked about that a lot.
I think
Um,
this Florida game is gonna really show me how good he is. To be honest.
Oh yeah,
I agree. Yeah, his biggest game of his life, probably.
Yeah, for sure.
The pressure's on him. Can he make plays without potentially his number one wide receiver?
Yeah.
and that's where backups, especially our backups, I think they have a chance to step up this game. Especially our
sure.
wide receiver core. Anthony Richardson isn't even top 100 in passing yards.
There's
Like,
only
there's-
about 150 QBs or there's
Yeah.
only about 150 teams in FBS. So
Dude, Joe Milton has more touchdowns and passing yards than Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
he has more passing yards than Anthony Richardson does.
Dude, I'm sure he does. Maybe not.
He's played really well. I mean,
Nah.
But he definitely
I
has.
mean,
He definitely has more touchdowns. He's three.
I think he's
two-
only
Oh, yeah.
completed 12
zero
passes. I
yards.
think he's 12 for 14 on the whole season. So I
To be
doubt
fair,
he has
Yeah.
more
but
passes.
to be fair though, like 2 of those were for really big pass plays though.
Yeah, they
yeah.
were.
It's
They were.
Anthony Richardson has 423 passing yards, and I don't think.
Okay, yeah.
Milton's probably around 200, maybe.
Maybe
Yeah,
not,
because he had
but
2.
but still, he has more touchdown passes than Anthony Richardson.
That is
So
true. That is very true.
I'd feel more confident starting Joe Milton over Anthony Richardson right now, honestly.
You
Personally.
got to think Bryce Young isn't even top.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. He hasn't been playing
70.
good this season.
To be
No,
fair, he's not played any good teams other than or Texas.
Well, you
but
still
he
think?
looked
I mean, he should
horrible
have.
yeah,
against
he
Yeah,
Texas.
played horrible against Texas.
he should
So
have way more passing yards if he played all these bad teams already.
I think he's the most overrated quarterback in the country.
Mhm. It's
Looking
just
at this
Alabama.
weekend, their schedule doesn't get any more difficult. They're playing Vanderbilt.
If I had to predict right now who's gonna win it, though, I'd probably say Ohio State's quarterback's gonna win it.
Yeah, especially since Bryce Young won it last year. I mean,
Yeah, not even because I think he probably deserves it. More so just because I don't think Stetson Bennett's gonna get the Heisman. And I mean, if anyone on Georgia's gonna get it, it's gonna be another player. I don't know what player would get it, but it's not gonna be Stetson. I don't think they'll give it to Stetson, but so that just makes
He'll
me
probably
more
finish
hopeful.
top 5 though.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
He
for
might
sure.
even finish top 3.
They'll give him.
He might
They'll
even be a
give him a
finalist.
chance. They'll give him a chance, but in reality, I don't see them actually thinking he's gonna get it. Like them actually voting
Yeah.
on him. So, but
yeah, there's no way Bryce Young can win it again. I mean,
he also hasn't been playing good, so it's like
no.
it's
Like, even if he had like an amazing season, like, could they really give him back-to-back Heisman's? Like, especially with all the talent throughout all of college football. Like, there's no way.
yeah. All right. So, do we want to get into the power rankings?
Yeah, I'm down. Unless you guys want to talk about week 4 for just a few minutes.
Yeah, we can do that just real quick.
All right. Just a couple games to keep an eye on. I'm just gonna list off some games. We can talk about a couple of them real quick. You got Clemson and Wake Forest, Missouri and Auburn, Duke and Kansas basketball schools undefeated, going head to head.
Hmm.
Florida and Tennessee, Texas and Texas Tech. You got Notre Dame and North Carolina, which should be an interesting one.
Yeah.
Then, scrolling down, looking at it a little bit, Arkansas, Texas A&M, that's a big game. Vanderbilt,
Mhm.
Alabama, not going to be a big one. Wisconsin and Ohio State, that could be a good one. There's a handful of games, not a lot, honestly.
Yeah.
I hope we're in for another good weekend of football and a lot of upsets aside from Florida over Tennessee. I really hope that.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we will, I think.
dude,
I think
There's
that
always been, even
Missouri,
last week.
Missouri Auburn is the battle of like the two worst teams in the SEC aside from
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Vanderbilt.
is. Yeah, it
Yeah,
It's
is.
that's gonna
funny.
be a funny game.
It's kind of
I
funny
Yeah,
that
it's
think
they got
definitely going to
that
be funny.
draw this year, that they play each other this year.
The two worst, yeah.
I
It's
think it's
I'm
gonna be an upset game.
No, Auburn's
Oregon and
gonna win.
Washington State.
Oh,
Oregon and Washington State.
you think
Wait,
Yeah,
Washington
I think
State's gonna
Washington
win?
State's gonna pull it out. Yeah,
really?
because that's. I
They
mean,
beat
Be surprised.
who did they upset? They upset somebody else earlier this season, right?
It was. Oh crap.
Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
that sounds
Which
right.
I don't know if that's much of an upset because I don't know how good Wisconsin is, but
They were ranked 19 at the time, so I
okay.
don't think they're amazing. But I mean, that was just like one of those games that, like Wisconsin's, Washington State was
Washington
like.
State, though. Washington State, nobody thought would be good this year. So I mean, it's still pretty impressive.
I mean, they do
That's true.
have. Oh well.
They do
They have
have
C Ward at quarterback, so I mean,
Hey.
that's that's dub instantly.
A lot of people are talking about this USC Oregon State game. I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
Oregon
I couldn't
State's got a
see it.
chance, but
Maybe it was Oklahoma State.
USC is interesting to me because we don't know much about their team still. They've looked great, but we don't know much about their team.
Mm-hmm. I agree
Um,
with that.
I'm honestly my top game this weekend, besides Tennessee and Florida, it's going to be a great one. Just looking at it here, Arkansas and Texas A&M. That's an interesting one right there because both teams have been disappointing in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think Arkansas's look better overall. But it's at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
7 o'clock kickoff. Night game. That's gonna be a really good game, I think. SEC battle. Both of those teams have a chance to beat Bama this season, so it's gonna be
Yeah.
interesting to see how that one plays out.
Another one, which is like another upset, is Stanford Washington. I mean, you think how Stanford played versus USC. I mean, even though it wasn't a super close game, I mean, they stuck with it. And Stanford's always one of those teams that just like they play a top opponent and they'll just win just so randomly. And it's just like, wait, what? Don't know if they can win versus Washington, especially with the way Michael Penix Jr. has been playing, but it's just another game to look at.
If he continues playing like that, it's gonna be a rough day for Stanford. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's definitely one to keep an eye on, especially in the Pac-12. Almost any team can beat any team in the Pac-12.
Yes.
So definitely one to look forward to. Levi, do you got any?
Any games?
Yeah.
Not really. Wake, Clemson. I don't know. I really hope
I would like Wake to win just
Yeah.
to
Me
prove
too.
Clemson's overrated. But
Me too. It's like the best team on their schedule too. So it's like,
yeah,
gosh, that's the thing. Ohio State, Clemson. I hate them so much. Not even because they're a rival or anything. I hate them because they get to play terrible teams all season long, and they
Oh
get to
yeah.
be in the conversation. Like, okay, maybe Tennessee wouldn't have been as successful as them over the past 10 years if they had the same schedule, but Tennessee wouldn't have been as bad over the past 10
No,
season 10
not at
years if
all.
they had that schedule. Like they don't play anyone. They play the easiest teams, and we're stuck here playing Alabama, Florida, Georgia, LSU. We have to play all these teams every year, week in, week out.
and we just
Clemson
played.
Clemson gets to play Georgia Tech,
Yeah,
Boston College, teams like that. Like it's just like it seems so unfair. And then these teams are always in the college playoff talk, and like people give them the benefit of the doubt even though they don't play anyone. And it's
and we
Mm-hmm.
just
frustrating.
played the ACC champion from last season.
Yeah.
So we
Oh
just
yeah.
played last year's best ACC team as well, on top of our normal SEC schedule. That's always brutal.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem fair. at the same time, those Clemson teams were definitely better than all the teams that we had in the past few years, especially with Deshaun Watson.
Hmm.
That national championship team was fun to watch. Um,
Yeah.
all right, I'm good to move on to power rankings if
Yeah,
you all
let's
are
Yeah,
good
we can
with
go
that.
ahead.
let's move on.
Now we're going to be getting into our power rankings for the SEC. We're going to be first looking at my power rankings right here, giving me my 3 top takeaways, which Trevor pointed out to me. Mississippi State at 7. I, if I'm being honest, didn't even realize that LSU beat them. Like that's just like the 2 teams I'm just like I don't really care about. But Trevor also pointed out to me that Mississippi's like schedule is tough these last couple games. Um, I think that they will definitely drop for me next week. Don't know if I could put LSU above them just because it's just like one game thing, and LSU does not look good this entire season. I think if anything, I should definitely Mississippi State should drop below Florida, below Texas A&M. Auburn again, just not looking too great, especially versus Penn State. I mean, Penn State came in, they played amazing. I definitely love the way that Penn State played. Um, and looking at the bottom of my schedule right here, I got South Carolina at the bottom. I really like that. Could really the bottom of the pack is really interchangeable for me. I think Vanderbilt could be at the bottom at some points. Missouri could definitely, and South Carolina. Auburn, I don't know if I'd really. I think 11's a good spot for them because I think they can definitely come through and win games. And we were talking about this before the podcast. I mean, looking at number 3, for me, it's still definitely. I love Tennessee at 3, but it could definitely still be a toss up depending. I think after this Florida game, it's going to solidify Tennessee as like the 3 team. Until they prove otherwise, it's just Tennessee, Kentucky, and Arkansas just haven't been playing full consistently that I would like to see to be able to have them in the spots that they're at. So that's really my takeaways from my power rankings.
My takeaways for this week's power rankings is I have Tennessee at 3, of course. I just think Tennessee has performed better than Kentucky, who I have right behind them, enough to put them there. I mean, I don't know. Kentucky and Tennessee, I think, are neck and neck right now. I think as the season goes on, Tennessee will be the better team. That's just what I think. But yeah. And then I have Ole Miss at 5. I don't know. I think I might have Ole Miss the highest out of everybody. I'm not sure. I just think they looked really dominant against Georgia Tech, and I think they looked dominant enough to put them ahead of Arkansas after their horrible performance against Missouri State, and so that's why I have them at 6. Texas A&M at 7. I brought them up because they looked good against. Well, they didn't look good, but they had a good enough performance to tell me that they deserve to be there because they beat a top 25 team. So I put them at 7. They're still middle of the road. Florida 8. Florida looked horrible against USF. So they're there. And then LSU 9, 10, Mississippi State. Mississippi State let me down. They lost to LSU. So they're behind LSU now. And then the last 4 are kind of interchangeable for me. You got Vanderbilt, Auburn, South Carolina, Missouri. I just think Missouri and South Carolina have looked the worst. Vanderbilt is probably honestly the worst team, but I haven't seen them play anybody other than Wake Forest, and they have looked better in their losses. So I put them ahead of Auburn, South Carolina, Missouri because they all looked horrible in their 3 big losses. So that's why I have Vanderbilt there over them. But yeah.
All right, so my 3 takeaways definitely have to be, I've got Tennessee at 3. I said last week that they got to prove to me that they're a top 3 team in the SEC. And, well, I kind of went against my word because they didn't prove it to me because we obviously played a cupcake team. But overall, Kentucky did not play as well as we did in their win, and Arkansas looked bad in their win. So that's why I've shaped the top 5 up to be, this right here. Tennessee at 3, Kentucky at 4, Arkansas at 5. Obviously, Georgia, Bama top 2. They'll stay there for a while, most likely. Then going along here, Texas A&M is at 6. They're back at 6. I had them there, a couple of weeks ago, maybe even last week, or actually, sorry, a couple of weeks ago. last week I had them pretty down after their loss. They had a big win against a ranked opponent. That's why I had them there. I knew they would bounce back. I just had a feeling they would bounce back. And look pretty good again in the Miami game. Obviously, as they're not scoring points, but their defense has kept them in games for sure. And I'm back on the LSU train. They look good against Mississippi State. I've got them at 8. They're right in the middle of the pack in the SEC. They've got a chance to improve. And that game, that LSU game with Tennessee is it's going to be a tough one. Not really
Yeah.
looking forward to that game
I
at
think
all.
I think we win, but it'll be close for at least 3 or 4 quarters. It'll be close to the whole game, but I
It's
think we win by at least a touchdown or 10 points.
There's a lot of factors in that game. Obviously, it's an away game. And we'll get into that more as the weeks go on, but obviously it's an away game. LSU's looked okay in their 3 games. Really proved it to me this weekend that they're going to be a good team this season.
They definitely beat a good Mississippi State team, but
I mean they did. Yeah, they did for sure. Other than that, I mean my bottom 4 interchangeable. Florida at 10. I think that's lower than all of you guys have Florida. But besides Andrew, I think Andrew had him at 10 as
Yeah.
well. But guys, they just have not looked good. I was on the hype train for them earlier this season. I was really worried about that game. Not as worried about that game. They just haven't proved anything, and they haven't even played on the road yet. So, I mean, with that, we can end it right here, guys. Obviously, big weekend for Tennessee football. Make sure to tune in to our last episode. We had the Florida Hate Week episode. That was a really good one. I really enjoyed making that one with the boys. So yeah, be sure to check that one out. And thank you all for tuning into this episode as well, episode 4. Be sure to follow us on our Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at VolBoyz Podcast. That's boys with a Z. So yeah, go Big Orange this weekend. Let's get a big W.
Go Vols.
The Tennessee Volunteers are back.